2010. Commissioner DiCaprio. Here. Commissioner Farrell. Absent. I believe I heard through the grapevine he's at a track meet, so he may not. Commissioner Haddad? Here. Commissioner Hu? Here. Kovacs is out of town on business. Commissioner Renz? Here. Commissioner Tierney? Alternate Commissioner Palma? Here. Commissioner Spagnuolo? And alternate Commissioner Venuti is out of town on business, and I am Commissioner Melillo, and I am present. Commissioner Palma, would you lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance? To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. Okay, the next regular meeting is scheduled for June 8th, 2010. We do have minutes to accept this evening from March 2010, April 13th, 2010, as well as May 11th, 2010. The April 27th meeting was canceled. Regarding the May 11th meeting, there was an error as they were first typed. Mr. Jowdy was present at the meeting, and he was accidentally marked absent. So the Secretary has corrected them, and we can accept them as a corrected version this evening. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, you want a motion on them all together or separately? Does it matter?
We can do all together as long as somebody was here at all those meetings, which I believe you were.
Let's give it a shot. I'll make a motion to approve the acceptance of the March 23rd, April 13th, and the May 11th as amended minutes.
Okay, do we have a second? Second by Commissioner DiCaprio, who also was, I believe, present at all three meetings. Any discussion or changes to those meetings other than the one already announced? All those in favor of accepting the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Started at 7:30 p.m. It's a petition of E.W. Batista Family Limited Partnership, 155 South Street, lot number J, 15048 for change of zone from RMF 4 to CCBD. If Commissioner Renz, if you would read the legal notice, and I will read the Planning Commission recommendation as well as the staff report.
Notice is hereby given that the Zoning Commission of the City of Danbury will hold a public hearing commencing at 7:30 p.m. on May 25th, 2010 in the Common Council Chambers at City Hall, 155 Deer Hill Ave, to consider the following matter. Petition of the E.W. Batista Family Limited Partnership, 155 South Street, number J, 15048, for change of zone from RMF 4 to CCBD. Parties in interest and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard at this time. Robert C. Melillo, Chairman, published May 15 and May 21, 2010.
Thank you, Commissioner Renz. Just for all members present, just wanted to remind everybody that we are being broadcast live tonight on Channel 24, Comcast Channel 24, Danbury's premium cable television station. So if we could remember to use our microphones so the people at home who are riveted to their seats may be able to hear us. All three of them, probably. Ted's mom and the other two. Okay, we have the staff report from the City of Danbury, and this is...
The report is 3 pages, and the Planning Commission recommendations on the front of it.
Yes, that's what I was trying to... I saw the front back of the Planning Commission. I was like,
Sorry,
I didn't see this one.
These both sides of the paper, you know.
Hey, paper's gold right now at school, too, so... Okay, dated May 16th, 2010, to City of Danbury Planning Commission, City of Danbury Zoning Commission, from Dennis I. Alpern regarding 155 South Street, Tax Assessor Map number J15048, proposed rezoning RMF 4 to CCBD. We have received a petition from the E.W. Batista Family Limited Partnership to amend the zoning map by rezoning 155 South Street from RMF 4 to CCBD. The parcel contains 12,430 square feet and abuts two other properties of the Batista family at the intersection of Main Street and South Street. This appears to be the same petition received in 2008. A copy of our report regarding that petition is attached for your information. That petition received a negative referral from the Planning Commission, 4-1, on December 3rd, 2008. A motion to approve the petition by the Zoning Commission was defeated by a 5-4 vote on March 24th, 2009. Because of the negative referral from the Planning Commission, a motion to approve needed a supermajority vote of 6 ayes. And then the attachment, City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department, dated December 2nd, 2008, to the City of Danbury Planning Commission, City of Danbury Zoning Commission, from Dennis I. Alpern, referencing 155 South Street, Tax Assessors Map Number J15048, proposed rezoning RMF4 to CCBD. We have received a petition from the E.W. Batista Family Limited Partnership to amend the zoning map by rezoning 155 South Street from RMF4 to CCBD. The parcel contains 12,430 square feet and abuts two other properties of the Batista family at the intersection of Main Street and South Street. The reason why the petition should be granted was stated by the applicant as follows. The requested zone change is an extension of the existing CCBD zone, which adjoins the parcel in question. We note that the reason given is an explanation of the proposed change, not an argument for approving it. Background. The existing two properties owned by the Batista family include 2-8 Main Street, J15046, and the adjoining 10-12 Main Street, J15045, containing an office building and bakery, respectively. Together, they total 40,741 square feet in area. In 2003, the applicant submitted a special exception site plan to replace the bakery with a Dunkin' Donuts, including related parking, a drive-through, and driveway access. The Planning Commission rejected the plans because of traffic concerns. Upon appeal to the Superior Court, a stipulated settlement was granted in 2004, which approved the new building, on ingress and egress. The proposed approved allow for combining the three lots. Plan of Conservation and Development. The land development plan map of the PCD recommends that 155 South Street be used for multifamily and 1- and 2-family development. The current use of this site is a 2-family dwelling and consequently is in compliance with the plan. Therefore, the requested change to CCBD is not in compliance with the PCD. In addition, the proposed rezoning would conflict with the following policy recommendation in Section 2, Urban Core District Plan in the PCD. Rezone areas in the urban core to be compatible with the Plan of Conservation and Development map. A rezoning to CCBD would do the opposite. Zone change criteria. There are several conflicts with the general criteria presented in Section 10I3A of the zoning regulations as underlined below. A, general criteria. The location, extent, and configuration of the various zoning districts within the City of Danbury are intended to further the objectives of zoning as set forth in Section 8.2 of the General Statutes of Connecticut, which objectives included but are not limited to protecting the public health and general welfare, providing convenience, protecting property values, limiting congestion in the streets, and providing safety from fire, panic, flood, and other dangers. Zones should be located with reasonable consideration given to 1, the suitability of the site for the particular uses allowed in the proposed zone, 2, the compatibility of uses allowed within the proposed 3, the present and future needs of the city for additional lands to be zoned as proposed, and 4, toward encouraging the most appropriate use of land throughout the city. We have several comments regarding these criteria. Limiting congestion in the streets. The intersection of South Street with Main Street is often congested with traffic, which at times backs up to Mountainville Avenue. Additional commercial development will only exacerbate an existing traffic problem. At the time the previous site plan was submitted for Dunkin' Donuts, a traffic study presented with the application indicated that the level of service of a morning peak traffic traveling eastbound on South Street at Main Street was LOSD. We do not have an updated traffic study on the impact of the new CVS store after construction. The compatibility of uses allowed within the proposed zone with the surrounding area. Extension to the CCBD zoning district would represent an intrusion to the RMF neighborhood, where existing housing is located to the south and west of the proposed zoning boundary. Moreover, approval could lead to an incentive for other bordering landowners to argue for more commercial rezonings farther westward, adding to the impact that commercial development would have on South Street traffic and other residential properties. This proposal changes a long-standing division between these commercial and residential areas and may encourage more in the future. To conclude, we cannot recommend approval of this petition because 1, it does not comply with the Plan of Conservation and Development, 2, it could result in increased traffic congestion on South Street, and 3, it represents a commercial intrusion into a residential neighborhood. And then the Planning Commission recommendation dated May 21st, 2010, To Robert C. Malillo, Chairman, Danbury Zoning Commission, from Arnold E. Finaldi Jr., Chairman, Danbury Planning Commission, referencing A3A referral, petition of E.W. Batista, LP 155 South Street, lot number J15048, for change of zone from RMF4 to CCBD. At the regular meeting held on May 19, 2010, the City of Danbury Planning Commission voted to give the above referenced petition a negative recommendation for the following reasons. It does not comply with the plan of conservation and development. It could result in increased traffic congestion on South Street, and it represents a commercial intrusion into a residential neighborhood. The motion was made by Ms. Hofstetter, seconded by Mr. Manuel, and passed with 4 ayes for Mr. Keller, Mr. Manuel, Ms. Hofstetter, and Chairman Finaldi, and 1 nay for Mr. Urice. For the record, I would like to ask or to seat Commissioner Palma for Commissioner Kovacs and Commissioner Spagnolo for Commissioner Farah. And we will leave Commissioner Tierney's seat vacant, hoping that he is able to attend and is maybe just stuck in traffic. With that, is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of the petition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, I'm Neil Marcus, member of the firm of Kona Wolf PC at 158 Deer Hill Avenue, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant seeking a zone change for this small parcel on South Street. And to quote some of my favorite philosophers, Yogi Berra, this is like deja vu all over again, because I was here for the last application when the Zoning Commission actually approved the change of zone by a vote of 5-4. But the Planning Commission disapproved the change of zone, so it didn't pass by the lack of 1 vote. So here we are again this evening. The Zoning Commission and the Planning Commission hasn't changed its position, but I need 6 votes because the Planning Commission was successful in defeating this. So why do you say, is this attorney back here tonight? A lot of you know that I never give up, but in reality, I didn't want to bring this application back, and I'm standing here in front of my client, Mr. Batista, and I advised Danbury was really concerned with the development of this corner of South Street, and if they were, we would have gotten either 6 votes or a positive recommendation. They're more concerned, quite honestly, at least at the planning level, with the plan of development. I mean, the plan of development and conservation in the city of Danbury was so finely drawn and so surgically cut that this 12,000 square feet is important to stay in a residential zone, according to the Planning Commission, which, by the way, adopted the plan of conservation development. The Zoning Commission, the people that I have to deal with this evening, and whose vote I want in favor of this, did not adopt the plan of conservation and development. You use it as a guide. So the real question is to take a knife surgically and cut up this corner of Danbury, this little intersection, and determine whether that 12,000 plus square foot parcel is so important to the plan of conservation and development that it has received a negative referral twice from planning, that it's so important that you really don't care about how that corner is developed commercially. That's where I am. And so I'll quote my next favorite philosopher and writer, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds." So, it wasn't Emerson?
No, it wasn't.
Who was it then?
Hume.
Who?
It was Hume.
I don't think so.
What team does he play on?
Emerson played for Boston, Red Sox. But anyway, a foolish consistency. Dennis and I will research this on Google it. Actually, Joanne will Google it while we figure out who to attribute that to. But the fact of the matter is, this may be the hobgoblin of little minds, and I may be the little mind, because maybe this is a foolish consistency. But my proposal is, in fact, what we brought to this commission and were turned down on a number of years ago, just 2 years ago. So, again, why are we back? Well, we're back for a couple of reasons. One is that there are people in the city of Danbury who are concerned about economic development, and we were actually requested by those people to bring this application back again. We were requested to come back with a plan for the positive development of this corner on South Street. As you know, the mayor, when he's not running hard for state office, has devoted a lot of time in the city of Danbury to the gateways There's a lot of money that's been spent by the city on the north end of Main Street. And now, again, they're focusing a little bit more on the south end of Main Street. And this corner, you're all familiar with it, has the old AAA building, which is a restaurant bakery at the moment. It has the old State National Bank building, which is empty at the moment. It served as a law office for a number of years, and then it was an alarm center for many years. Now it's empty. And it has over here the property that we want to rezone, which is a two-family house that is currently owned and acquired by Mr. Batista for purposes of coming up with a development plan for the entire site. We cannot do a logical development of the site and provide the parking that's required by the zoning regulations without adding this piece here. And I keep saying 12,000. It's actually two parcels. The parcel here is 12,000 square feet, and then there's a small piece over here which brings it up to another to 15,000. But this whole corner here, we can't really develop the parking without adding this in to the whole site. So what brings us here is this. This is what we'd like to build. A building that takes up with its parking more than what is currently zoned in the central business district. Another view, and maybe even a better view, is a corner view. And that's the develop class building at the entrance to downtown Danbury. Now, as you see in the staff report, the property is currently approved for a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts building. That plan would knock down the old AAA building, which is the current bakery shop, and it would leave the former bank building on the corner. And we would put in a new Dunkin' Donuts, and you would then have basically Dunkin' Donuts, who nationally would love this, as your gateway to both the south end and the north end of Danbury. Because as you come down the north end of Danbury, what used to be a bank many years ago, the Danbury Bank and Trust, is now a Dunkin' Donuts as well. So we could have two freestanding Dunkin' Donuts at either end of Danbury. That's one option. The other option is that we could develop a mixed-use office, retail building which contains a Dunkin' Donuts in it. And that's what the preference is from my client, who wants to see something that's first class. So the first reason I will tell you that this application makes sense is on the board. The staff report, which is in fact the same staff report that went to the Planning Commission in 2008, contains really no new information that didn't exist back in 2008. There's concern about page 2 of the staff report about the limiting of congestion in the streets. It was read to the record, and I'll cite it again. The intersection of South with Main Street is often congested with traffic. The last time I was here, and I'll tell you again now, when I was here with the CVS site across the street in front of the Planning Commission, and this issue was raised, I said, that's like music to my ears, because the problem with downtown Danbury is we don't have enough traffic. It's dead. And anything that generates traffic in downtown Danbury, even though I come through that intersection usually 2 or 3 times a day, so I'm the one who has to put up with the traffic, and I don't see it, quite honestly, very, very often. But I think that that's positive. We want to generate traffic in downtown Danbury. So the staff report goes on to say additional commercial development will only exacerbate an existing traffic problem. Well, if that's the case, then the people who are concerned with economic development who have asked us to bring this request back have misread what's going on. If they think additional commercial development is going to exacerbate the traffic issue, then we should just leave the property somewhat the way it is. It could be developed as a Dunkin' Donuts in an empty bank building, and that bank building has very limited commercial use. But that's really not the message we're getting from people who are concerned with economic development in the center core district of Danbury. So we're getting conflicting opinions. We've got a staff report adopted by the Planning Commission consistent with the plan of development, which would say, do not change the zone. On the other hand, we have people who are on the third floor of the City Hall who are concerned with economic development, the streetscape, and what's going on Main Street. Because the opportunity is really kind of limited. Once my client moves forward with the approved site plan and builds a new Dunkin' Donuts, he's not about to tear it down 5 years later when people say, well, why don't we redevelop this corner of Danbury? The opportunity is now. The opportunity was there in 2008, but in fact the economy pretty much took care of that opportunity because development in construction has been really in the tank for the last couple of years. But as we're now looking towards a brighter economic development picture, this property will in fact be built. We're going to run out of time on our existing approval, even though we did get an extension. But at this point, we have basically very, very little time left to determine the fate of this corner for the next 20 or 25 years. So that's where we are. The second good reason is that what decision is made this evening will have a long-term impact on the development of the city of Danbury. The third reason I'm going to pass out. I'm not going to pass out myself, but I'm going to pass out the third reason.
And Dennis was so concerned that you were going to...
Where you were coming from. There's one for you and one for you. You know what? I just ask you to take one and pass one to Fred. What is being passed out is a letter to the editor written recently, about a year ago, to the Danbury News-Times.
Excuse me, Mr. Marcus. Joanne, we're going to label this as Exhibit A.
Enough copies for her, too.
Or one, or whichever mechanism we use now.
Thank you.
And this is a letter to the editor. And this is something that I think is... I actually have this pinned up over my desk, and I don't have much and a lot of pin-ups over my desk. But I have it because this was the biggest tribute to Ed Batista and is one of the main reasons why you ought to do this zone change. This is by Lila Shaker. Lila Shaker was the most outspoken opponent of the development.
She was in opposition to the development.
Absolutely. She was in opposition to the development of a Dunkin' Donuts.
Foolish consistency.
There's foolish consistency. There you go.
Was that Yogi Berra also?
I think it was Yogi Berra. So anyway, she was our main opposition at the Danbury Planning Commission hearings on the plan for the Dunkin' Donuts at Springside and Osborne. And after that was developed, she wrote this letter to the Danbury News-Times. And I'm going to tell you, this corner of Main and South Street is not half as derelict as the corner of Springside and Osborne was when Ed Batista purchased it to develop a Dunkin' Donuts. But in the frame of references to where it is in the city, they are very similar. Over on Springside, you really had a kind of a garbage-infested, large vehicle parking lot. Here, you don't have that. I mean, this is not garbage-infested. But what you have are functionally obsolete buildings that are in great need of redevelopment and rehabilitation. And it's the same thing that we had over on Osborne, where the people said, oh, it's going to be terrible. You know, they thought it was going to be an awful development of that site. And the fact of the matter is, afterwards, the lady who opens up her door every morning to look out on it thinks it actually turned out pretty nice. So I use that as the third reason to grant this application. What you're going to find here is somebody who wants to develop this into a potential benefit that he has a proven track record for doing it. So those of you on the planning, those of members of the Planning Commission who would come out and say, well, we're just worried about the preservation of the RMF zone and that's our major concern. And we don't like this plan because it doesn't meet with the plan of conservation development, I think are being very short-sighted. And hopefully you will give them the opportunity to drive by this site and say, I guess we were wrong. The zoning commission was correct. It should be redeveloped, and this is a good plan. So that's the application. I mean, it's a very small chunk of property. I will, again, anticipate the question that I received the last time, I think from this commission, which was, well, if you just develop this as if you just change the zone of the CCBD zone and you don't develop incorporate it into the site, aren't you just bringing commercial development into the residential zone? And the answer is that if you look at the zoning regulations, and we did this last time, and I'm not going to go through in the same detail, if you look at the narrowness of the site, in the small area down here, in the setback requirements, even in this zone which has limited setbacks, but just your requirement to build a building on a site and have traffic move around it and have parking, that in reality, this site that's being rezoned has minimal commercial value without being attached to the larger parcel. There's virtually nothing in the CBD zone that you could build on here with parking of any significance that would make sense. So the answer to the question that was raised the last time is we are not on its own incurring a commercial development into the residential neighborhood. But we are drawing a new line. Here's the line. Is right here now in this house is next to the CBD zone. When we finish, these are not houses actually. These are actually apartment buildings, though they're small. These apartment buildings will now be the buffer between the commercial and the single-family and two-family homes that exist as you go further up, and up towards Whitlock and Deer Hill. So we're drawing a new line, no question. The question really that you have to deal with is, when this becomes a parking area for this site, will that create an incursion on the existing neighbors to the southwest over here that violates good zoning? And the answer to that, I think, is it will not. Because even though the Plan of Conservation Development says we don't want to see incursions of commercial into residential, they did not examine this with the microscope that you guys do. They didn't look at the site-specific request. That's a general principle that they've adopted in the plan, but they certainly didn't think about the fact that every once in a while, when you have a rule, you have to have an exception. This is clearly the exception to that rule. And this is clearly a site that lends itself to the small zone change that we seek. The last time we brought this application before you, we had very little neighborhood opposition, as I recall. I'm not sure this evening that we have a great deal of neighborhood opposition. The property directly across the street from this zone change is commercial. It's been redeveloped over the years. It was a bunch of fairly dilapidated buildings. It's now a modern pharmacy. I just think that what you got to do is take the hard look one time more at the plan. And if you haven't been by this corner recently, before you make your vote, go drive by the corner. I think most of you are familiar with it. And just envision something of this nature at 2 Main Street as opposed to what's there today. And you'll see actually that the proposal is to have the drive-through for the Dunkin' Donuts come right through the center of this building, which will be a little different than any Dunkin' Donuts drive-through or any other fast food drive-through that you'll see in this area. Most of them are pretty apparent. They're hung out on the outside of buildings, and you say, well, it's a drive-through. This one here is well-designed, and again, much more in keeping with the statement that we think the City of Danbury wants to make, which is positive modern development at this gateway. So that's the reason we're here. And all I need to do, I have a different commission. Some of you were here 2 years ago, but essentially what I need is to convince one more person that I could convince 2 years ago that this makes sense. The Planning Commission has not changed its position. And in fact, at the last application, the Planning Commission basically took over the role of zoning because with their negative referral, they defeated what would have been a majority opinion that the property should have been rezoned. So we're back in that predicament. The criteria used by the Planning Commission has not changed, but I think the times keep changing. And in fact, I would say I'll go back to cutting the exception to the rule, even though we don't want to throw away the plan of conservation development. I don't think that it was, when it was drafted, that site-specific uses were ever considered. It's a general statement, and you get to look at the more specific application of that general statement. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, Commissioner Jowdy.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Jowdy, would you use your microphone, please?
Attorney Marcus,
We want Commissioner Haddad's mother to hear this, so
hi, Gene.
she's the only one watching.
We basically have two zones, or two parcels, 26,000 and change square feet, and 14,000, which is CBD, and you're looking to add the J15048, which is the RMF4. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a piece that's in the RMF4 that we wish to add,
Right.
and that's the area over here.
The rendering that you had up there, if you could put that back up, is that is that the whole parcel that you're looking to do right there?
That is the whole parcel. That's a depiction of a corner of the whole parcel, but the rest of the property is just a continuation of the parking area.
Okay, so what part of that parcel butts up against the RMF4, the existing RMF4?
Well, let's see if I can tell you. It would be the back side. This would be your facades along Main and South Street here. So it would be the back of the building, and the back of the building is what you're looking at here. So you'd be looking at Main Street over here, South Street over there, and basically your parking area would be, I'm going to go back to this map, your parking area would be in this area right here. So this area the house gets torn down, the old garages get torn down, and this becomes a parking area which would be landscaped and buffered.
You're pretty much going to have the impervious surface right to the property line, though, with the exception of some landscape.
Yeah, we would abide by the Planning Commission's, by the regulations requires that you buffer between commercial and residential.
Okay, and if you could go back to that, just show me where the entrance and exits are to Main and South, maybe the other side of that rendering.
Well, this is not really a site plan per se, but the entrance at Main and South would be back here, pretty much where the entrance at Main and South has been approved for the Dunkin' Donuts plan that is currently approved by the Planning Commission. It's pretty much in the same area as approved. So if you look at this, if you envision this as the bank building on the corner, the entrance will be pretty much where there's a driveway behind the bank now, slightly further back.
The last application you had, didn't you have just one exit on one side and an entrance and exit on the other, something like that?
Yeah, we proposed just limited entrances here on Main Street and an entrance and exit here. But on the existing plan, there are restrictions on left and right-hand turns on both entrances and exits.
So you're using both South and Main, and you'd have an entrance and exits on both of them.
That's correct, and the exit on Main is a right-hand only. You can't go left out of there.
Is that
Attorney
different?
Marcus, if I could maybe just step in here for a second. Mr. Jowdy, if I remember correctly from the last petition, and I just want to remind you that we since we're not site plan specific, would be why Attorney Marcus didn't bring the site plan with him. The proposed traffic flow pattern is in existence right now with the current plan, which would be built with the Dunkin' Donuts that is in place approved to be built, should we deny this, or should this not pass again. So I think the traffic pattern really doesn't change all that much except for maybe the flow, and that also would be dictated through the Planning Commission subject to our approval once they looked at the site plan review and become much more specific detail.
You're absolutely right. The entrances here and the exits are virtually the same, not exactly, as approved.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
It might not have anything to do with the application, but if you could just answer it. The existing South Street location that's right now across from JK's, would that stay or would that go if this was approved?
The long-term plan is to remove that and relocate it to the site. Thank you. Yeah, that's clearly the plan.
Do we have any other questions, Commissioner DiCaprio?
It's my understanding that, as you mentioned, the Dunkin' Donuts is already approved. So the third reason that you gave kind of is moot. The third reason was Dunkin' Donuts is great, but you've got that approved already.
But that's only a piece
I understand. I understand, but you're adding something that really has no substance to it.
Well, again, if you look at the proposal to develop the whole corner versus building the Dunkin' Donuts building where the old AAA building was, you'll see that there's a significant difference.
Well, there's a substance to the developer, yes. Yeah. But is there a substance to the city of Danbury is my question. And that's what we look at, is what is the substance to the city of Danbury? And I think that the Dunkin' Donuts being approved already really solves that problem. That's really what the question really is not a question, it's a statement that I have. As I was one of the ones that voted against the proposal last time, and I'm going to ask you one more time for my own edification. I'd like to see a compelling reason for the city of Danbury, not for the developer, because I know what the developer needs and I know what he wants. But that's not compelling enough for me to vote yes.
Okay, I'll give you the compelling reason, because I will tell you that, again, in the economy that exists in the central business district in Danbury, even in good times, even before we went into a recession, I'll roll the clock back 4 years, before pre-recession, that anyone who was investing in a significant office retail structure on the main street of Danbury should have had their head examined. It is not exactly an investment that people are knocking the doors down to do. Now, having said that, if you have a little vision and a little faith, and you have some anchor, and in this case, we had a Dunkin' Donuts approved. We're going to invest some money, not as much as that building, to build a new Dunkin' Donuts. And so we've already committed to a plan, and we've got a use for a portion of this retail area. So at that point, the question is, do you have a little faith that, if you build it, they will come? It's the old field of dreams. And my client does. He has that. Now, thankfully, to a certain extent, he didn't try this 2 years ago because the recession would have put a real damper on this. But we're looking at construction that will go forward in the next 2 years. It won't start now. We have to, if we get through this commission, we still have to go back to planning and go through the entire site plan issue and special permit. But so we'd be talking about a building that would exist 2 years from now. And hopefully the economy will be back. But if I have to convince you as to why you should change your vote, it's once you put a Dunkin' Donuts there, now you may knock down the State National Bank building someday and build something else on that corner. But you've limited your use of that corner, and you've ruled out a substantial structure that requires a combined site. That's the reason to vote today to change the zone, because you open up this opportunity. If the economy doesn't come back, and if my client elects to go to the approved site plan, then basically you really haven't done much at that point other than, here's what you've done. I mean, it's always good to look at the fallback that you've created. If that's the case, what you've done, this building stays. This building gets replaced by a Dunkin' Donuts that's sort of in the middle here. This property over here, if it's not combined for the site that we're talking about, has very little development. It's going to stay as a non-conforming two-family home in the CBD zone, because at that point, that is the highest and best use. Because anything that you build on here to conform to the CBD would be about 1,000 square foot store. I mean, it's really nothing. So there is no harm to doing this. But the opportunity, that's what you're voting on. The opportunity exists now, and once that opportunity is gone, then the chances of ever putting something of this nature on this site disappears for a long time. So that's the difference. I mean, I guess the other thing is that during the 2 years that have elapsed since the last time we talked about this, that bank building has emptied out, and there are no tenants. It's been for lease. Until Mike McLaughlin runs again and needs the headquarters, we got nothing. No,
Actually, I think he's going somewhere. He might even be going somewhere.
You think he's going to run again? They need it. But I'm saying, seriously, if you drive by there and look at that corner, you got to say, when is somebody going to occupy it? And the chances are it may be a long time yet. So that's why it's the opportunity. It's not that we don't have something approved. What we have approved is a lot different than what the opportunity would be to build if we have this slight zone change. Otherwise, we're destined to have the same corner for a long time. That's the answer.
Thank you.
I convince you yet? You don't have to tell me. I'll watch your vote.
Okay. Do we have any further questions for Attorney Marcus? Commissioner Haddad.
Attorney Marcus, I did a quick calculation, and this petition would be so different, the conversation of congestion and traffic, if you didn't already have a Dunkin' Donuts where 137 feet from this building you're going to be selling coffee and donuts. So the conversation of traffic, of making a large impact to this corner if we approve this by putting a Dunkin' Donuts there, isn't even part of the conversation, because you already have a Dunkin' Donuts approved, just less than 200 feet from there.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things I remember from the last petition. That certainly hasn't changed. The other thing I wanted to just double check with you on is the adjoining piece to the parcel in question. Isn't that a condominium complex?
It is. It's multifamily. It's an apartment.
But is that part of the what are those condos called back there? Is that part of Southgate?
I don't think so. I think it's separate. It's separate from Southgate. Behind it is Southgate. Yes, yeah.
So they can't. The people next to this parcel can't seek a zone change because they're already declared as condos.
Well, you never say can't. They would have to agree on dissolving their condominium and changing.
Exactly.
It's
by 100%.
It's a little different. You're absolutely right. It's a little different than. And when you're talking about the domino theory of, well, if the line has been here for 30 years and now you're going to move it over here, when are they going to move it further south? And the answer to that is it becomes exceedingly difficult because of the nature of the condominium ownership next door.
And we always have to weigh that in these petitions, but when you get a condominium complex next to it that requires 100% of every owner in there, I think that changes things. And then the other thing, just a matter of housekeeping, is your square footage. If you recall, the square footage by your petition this evening is calculated by using city easement. So your parcel is technically smaller than this.
Yeah, we take the zone line
and you bring it to the center road,
to the center of South Street, which is what we have to do.
Which is what, yeah. So and that's included in the square footage. So
that's
actually,
correct. That's the 15. The parcel itself is about 12,000. That's the difference. We pick up the sidewalks in the city right of way. That's correct.
And I think the only other thing I would ask, which I don't think anybody here has the answer to, is the last time a traffic study was taken on that intersection, it was level service D. Nothing was done after the CVS. Now, I would venture to guess that there's still quite a volume of traffic, but the flow may have improved by improvements that CVS was required to make.
They made substantial improvements to that
So-
intersection. They put in a widened turn lane, they put in a dedicated turn lane, and they had to retime the traffic lights and put in sensors in the road to trigger the traffic lights. So, yeah, clearly those traffic has been modified, the flow of traffic by CVS. And again, if we move forward with a project on this site, we've got to convince the city traffic authorities that it makes sense. But again, we've got the Dunkin' Donuts approved. When you have traffic at this corner, it's basically rush hour traffic. It's first thing in the morning and late in the afternoon. The only thing that a Dunkin' Donuts does is it adds a little traffic movement in and out during the morning rush. That's when they're busy. By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when the next flow, you don't get much impact from your Dunkin' Donuts. The next question is the rest of the prospective tenant mix, which we don't know, but would be people that have small retail stores or offices. They could be offices of accountants, lawyers. They could be the question is, are they likely to have an impact? And the answer is, you don't know, but more likely they're way off your peaks. They don't generate a lot of traffic at 8 o'clock in the morning. They generate people coming in at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock or whatever. So traffic is not, it's an issue, but it really isn't an issue for this commission at this point. You got to look at the bigger picture of what's going to be developed on the site.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And do we have any other Mr. Palmer?
About the bakery shop that you have there, is already used by somebody else or Mr. Batista?
It's the bakery shop there is basically a Portuguese/Brazilian bakery. It's not. It's just a tenant of Mr. Batista's.
So if the commission has to approve this kind of plan, I think we should know if they also agree before any changes be done to give up, their lease, to give up.
They don't have a lease. They're very short term.
So you may, if this is approved, you're just going to throw them out?
Oh, well, actually, they have been looking for other sites on their own. My bigger fear is that we're going to have an empty site again because they're going to move. Yeah. Or the other thing is if they want space in this new building, they just have to, obviously they have to shut down while you build. But, yeah, there's certainly enough room in here for a retail. And they would actually be a perfect use in this building because they exist in that neighborhood.
Hold on. They exist.
They exist. I'll remember that. I finished on the word exist.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Well, they currently exist there, so they have some draw. And again, they have the opportunity. But they have never made a long-term commitment to a lease in this building. They've always, even when they started out, it was a very short-term lease. But we'll find a place for them.
Yeah, because, it's not when you have some kind of business and then comes somebody just throw you out or something like that, somebody going to get hurt. And also the city don't want nobody to get hurt business-wise. So the condominium association that is here too. And I don't know if that has to do something before making any decision.
Well, the condominium association, the question that Ted had asked was, they have no real impact on this. The condominium is next door. They're not part of this application. Yeah, they're next door. Well, his question was, what's the likelihood that a condominium will come in for commercial use as opposed to residential? And that makes it much more difficult because if you have a 6-unit condo or a 12-unit condo, even though they're small, you need everybody to basically agree to move. And that's hard to do. That's hard to do.
Do we have any additional questions for Attorney Marcus? Okay. Mr. Marcus, I have a couple. First, I just wanted clarification to piggyback on Commissioner Palma's question. The bakery that he was asking about in the AAA building, that's actually scheduled to be torn down when the new Dunkin' Donuts is built anyway, correct?
That's absolutely
so
correct.
Regardless of what we do this evening, that building is looking to come down and that tenant is going to have to move, which is probably why he's already been looking for a location.
That approval originally for the Dunkin' Donuts occurred about 6 or 7 years ago. So was it longer than that?
No,
Yeah.
that seems like a long time ago.
Yeah, Joanne had absolutely no gray hair in her head. Not that she has a lot, and I had hair on my head then. There's a little fuzz.
But none on your chin.
None on the chin, that's right. But that was done a long time ago. So the bakery knows that
2003.
ultimately, 2006 or 7 years ago, yeah. But the bakery knows that ultimately there will be construction on that site and they'll relocate. But this actually affords them an opportunity if they want to stay in the neighborhood.
Another question I have is actually just a comment, and that as the condo association actually would have been notified about this petition because being an adjoining neighbor, they would have been, at least the association would have received a mail, and then they could have showed up with a condo representative or something to this hearing. And then lastly, just for the benefit of us here, if you would just quickly remind us that the proposal that for this new location is to put a drive-through in. However, that because it's a special exception, that would have to go through the Planning Commission process all over again from square one?
Yes. Yes, we would have to get their approval to relocate the approved drive-through to this location. Absolutely.
So any traffic concerns or anything along those lines would also be addressed by the Planning Commission at that time, which is actually what their role and responsibility would be with the site plan review.
Absolutely. No question.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, so thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Alpern?
How did you determine that you needed this additional lot for parking?
We determined it based on the square footage of the proposed building, and we did it. We don't know exactly, but based on a proposed tenant mix of retail and office, that's what we came up with.
So you made an assumption that there would be so much retail, so much office?
That's correct. Yeah, we basically, and again, if that mix changes, the parking needs may slightly change, but not a lot. I mean, we need a pretty significant parking area.
How big a building did you have without that additional lot?
I didn't bring along the
Well,
other...
how many floors?
This is a two-story building.
Two-story.
Yeah. And I didn't bring along all the site plan, I was actually asked not to. Bring along all the site plan information.
But it does kind of speak to the case, doesn't it? Because the assumption is you need this additional lot to support a building which you've shown us.
That's correct. And again, that's consistent with one of the questions from the last hearing, which we sort of addressed, and that is, what's the standalone value of this lot? So again, going back to your question, if we build the building that we propose, the one that's shown here, and the actual tenant mix doesn't require all of this to be parking, the likelihood that we could retain this two-family, I mean, there's a slight possibility we could just use this piece here for parking and retain this as a two-family. That would be something that we'd have to present to the Planning Commission. It's a possibility. Then the effect of this zone change is even more minimal than if we tore down the two-family. But what's more likely is that some of this area would just end up as unused, landscaped, excess parking availability for the future. Because if your tenant mix changes 5 years down the road, you got to have the parking. I mean,
but you can't tell me how big a building you could put in now without that additional lot.
Without the additional lot, again, we had that information before this commission the last time because we had two proposed site plans, and the current one, and I can't give you that off the top of my head. Ed, do you remember? If Ed Batista's here, he might remember. For the record, Ed Batista.
I have the minutes from the decision, yeah.
We can do one-story or two-story building. I mean, we kind of debated on that. But the biggest reason for the piece was to move the driveway because it's a piece of the lot that comes to the...
Why don't we go over to the board here? Yeah, part of it is to move the driveway to a point.
It's a piece over here that belongs to this lot. Then encroaches in this piece, and the driveway for the Dunkin' Donuts that was approved is over here. So if we include this in this lot, the in and out of this goes back further, is a better traffic flow because of the lane over here. That was one of the biggest reasons actually for the traffic. So this will actually improve much better the traffic flow.
That's a good point, because the Planning Commission, when they approved the Dunkin' Donuts site, knew that we couldn't go beyond this point here, so the driveway's here. They thought that that was actually too close to the intersection. By making this site available for parking and traffic, because that's where your driveway comes through the parking lot.
One of the biggest problems was too short of the distance. We had problems with that. So when I bought this, I thought I could put the driveway further without taking the house. But none of this made sense because it will be three old buildings. So we're trying just to make a better corner, a better building. I'm not looking, I mean, if it's a two-story, one-story, whatever fits, whatever works over there, I mean, that's pretty much what we're looking for. But the biggest reason was the driveway is the biggest improvement, actually, besides the building.
Thank you.
What do you well, actually, I have one of these.
Well, there you go. I got your own.
Do you recall what the allocation was, the numbers you used to calculate needed parking?
We calculated the first floor as all retail and the second floor as all office when we did that.
How many spaces per square foot? Do you remember? Because, there's a difference.
Absolutely. There's a difference between office.
No, there's a difference between CBD and tables.
Yes, but this was calculated using the CBD requirement. It was done by the site engineer, and I don't have the exact number. I really don't. If that's important, I'd get it for you, because we had it the last application, but then we were basically told that it wasn't an issue.
Yeah. Mr. Alpern, if I could maybe just interject here and just one question, the site plan direction of your questions, and two, maybe even reference the fact that we could reference the minutes from the previous petition, and then even if we do close the public hearing tonight, we can close it conditioned upon receiving that information from Attorney Marcus as well.
That's correct. Or you can look in the past application and you can incorporate that as part of the record.
Understand. Anyone who's been here like Ted for many years knows that I don't care for site plans being presented as a zoning commission. But the argument is that they need this additional space to support that building. So I'm trying to figure out what would you get if you didn't. That's.
I think the last time we actually had the two different size buildings. We
did.
Are you? And by the way, as a matter of housekeeping, Mr. Chairman, is Attorney Marcus formally requesting us to take last minutes and put them into tonight's meeting? Is that what we are doing?
No, I'm saying that if you want, you can refresh, you can incorporate any portion of the prior hearing, that you don't have to look at the transcripts or the minutes, but if you want to go look at drawings that were submitted, you're certainly welcome to do that. We would incorporate them if you want. But the real problem is to say, the real issue is, it's the design and the mass of the building, because as Ed Batista just pointed out, the South Street, the running along South Street here is actually pretty short. So what you ended up with was a building that basically, in order to bring the driveway back to here, the building it's a much different building. I mean, it just doesn't do justice to this size. This is a big building. I mean, it's big for that corner. You got a little building on the corner now, and that fits. But because of the length along South Street here, the run, you're not going to get much more of a building than you have here, because you need your driveways in here. So you might expand this building footprint out to about there. But it really changes the whole concept of this building. That's the problem. Yeah, go ahead.
The city wants the building in the front. For me, it would have been better the building in the back, actually, to put the drive-through. But the city wants the building for view of the entrance of Danbury in the front. That's why we put the drive-through underneath the building. So that was the reason. It's not my, would it be better for retail, actually, the building in the back? Because the city likes to see Main Street buildings in the front and the street and the parking in the back. That's the reason why we did this way.
With the parking in the back, you have to have the driveway in the back.
We incorporate the drive-through underneath the building. It's about 20,000 square feet, the building right now. We have Dunkin' Donuts approved for 3,000, I think, 3,200. We have 5,400, and we have the house. So the building will be a little bigger. We can downsize the building, and it's not the big issue. The big issue is to do the right thing in the corner and incorporate the Dunkin' Donuts over there. But the parking was done by the engineer with the CBD, whatever, and the office and retail, so he has enough parking for that. He works with the city on that.
But the key thing is, and again, as I say, we were asked to reconsider this. The whole idea was to talk about the streetscape, what this will look like. And Ed's absolutely right. I mean, the more economical version of this building would be to put it in the back of the site, do your parking lot in front, and not worry about the statement you're making on the corner. But this is designed to develop that corner. And to develop the corner, we need a certain length along South Street. And that's where you end up, right here.
Thank you, Attorney Marcus.
Thank you.
Did that generate any additional questions from commission members? Commissioner who?
So if you don't have that additional parcel of land, will the Dunkin' Donuts still be built on the South Street side, or will it be built on the Main Street side of the property?
Main Street.
It will be built on the Main Street side.
Where it's currently approved.
Okay.
And the white brick building just stays until we have a better use.
It will be South Street anyway. I mean, it will be...
Yeah, the entrance, the traffic pattern as currently approved is an entrance on Main Street, and then you have to exit pretty much on South Street, and it goes around. There is an entrance on South Street as well, but the Main Street entrance is very limited because if you can picture it, if you're coming out of there now, it's virtually impossible to make a left turn. You've got to cross 3 lanes of traffic coming one direction and join up virtually 2 lanes of traffic coming the other direction. You got a 5-lane movement there, and even I couldn't convince Abdul Mohammed to allow that. And I had to agree with him. That's a tough movement. So out of Main Street, it's right turn down to the light, but you can come in on Main Street. So the traffic pattern mimics what we would do with this building if it were built.
But with the Dunkin' Donuts on South Street, you'll have an entrance from South Street and an exit from South Street, correct? Onto South Street.
The Dunkin' Donuts that'll be on Main Street will enter on South Street, enter and exit. Yes.
I believe that.
Dunkin' Donuts down the street on South Street will close.
And Attorney Marcus, I also believe that's also subject to the Planning Commission, because I want to say your existing, I think, has a stipulation that it's either entrance or exit only, and so the Planning Commission could actually stipulate that as well.
Yes,
did you have
that's correct.
further questions, Commissioner? Okay. That actually generated another question in my mind, which I'm curious about. With the existing Dunkin' Donuts plan and that driveway and entranceway for that Dunkin' Donuts, does that further diminish the use allowed on the existing 2 Main Street building by taking away parking lot or driveway space?
It pretty much limits 2 Main Street to the size building that's there. It allows it to be used as an office building or a bank office, because it was a bank originally. But you can't grow 2 Main Street. You're pretty much stuck with what you got. Once the new Dunkin' Donuts is built, because of the parking requirement and the traffic movement requirements.
So
you're absolutely right.
So it's even arguable that it might actually just become a non-conforming building.
Oh, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Is it possible that existing building could fall under a non-conforming use pre-existing non-conforming, or is there?
Possibly, but I wouldn't venture an opinion on that at this point.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll stand by if there are any other thoughts.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone wishing to speak against this petition? Anybody wishing to speak against this petition? Attorney Marcus, do you have any rebuttal to the opposition?
That's even tough for me.
Okay. Mr. Alpern, do you have any additional comments or? Okay. Commission members?
I'd like to motion to close public hearing.
Okay, motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Haddad, seconded by Commissioner Palma. Discussion on closing the public hearing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Commissioner
I'd like-
DiCaprio.
I have a comment. I count 8 people here. Wondering if we should close or table and keep it open till we get a full slate.
I believe we can close the public hearing and actually not take action on it this evening. We don't have to vote just because we closed the public hearing. The benefit
understand
of keeping it open would be allowing Commissioner Tierney, alternate Venuti, or Commissioner Farah in opposition to question Attorney Marcus, or for that matter, give other people an option to speak.
So somebody, if we close it, somebody would have to listen to the tapes to get a 9
yes.
a 9-vote panel.
And even if we left it open, I believe they would still have to listen to the tapes as well as what would be introduced in the next public hearing. So, that's a decision that we can do. We can
That answered my question.
and we can weigh that in closing the public hearing and not closing the public hearing. Commissioner Jowdy?
Was there anything we were waiting for on this public hearing that we were talking about? We're all set?
Mr. Alpern, did you?
Site plans?
No, we're not. We wouldn't look at site plans, and Mr. Alpern, I think, is satisfied with the answers, and we can reference the minutes. They're a matter of public record, and we can access public record. Plus, since the minutes were referenced to, and Attorney Marcus said we could reference those, I think we can feel safe that Corporation Counsel will let us do that.
Okay, I'm okay with the motion on the table then. Thanks.
Any further discussion on closing the public hearing? Okay, all those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is closed. Attorney Marcus, as always, I will point out we have 8 members present. We need to have a supermajority vote. So if you would like, we can take no action this evening on this petition and wait till our next meeting, hoping we have a full panel with someone listening to the tapes.
I think unless you're compelled to act tonight, the better way is to afford people an opportunity to be the 9th vote, particularly Commissioner Farah, who heard it the last time, and he's familiar with the history. He could listen to the tapes, or Commissioner Tierney or whoever. So that would make some sense.
Okay.
More than the opportunity. As long as you think you'll all be around next meeting. Summertime.
Okay, so with that then, we will not move this to old business. We have no public hearings to continue. We have nothing under old business for consideration and possible action. We have nothing under new business, correspondence, or other matters. For reference only, we do have the petition of Residence Inn by Marriott Danbury, 22 Seeger Street, lot number G16003 for hotel liquor license. That public hearing is scheduled for June 8th, 2010, which would be the second Tuesday in June, which we will be having that meeting, I would imagine. Also, I believe we had talked, the Secretary and I were talking and looking at the calendar. The last meeting in July, I believe there's a conflict with both the Secretary and myself are going to be out of town. So we were anticipating just going ahead right now and canceling that second Tuesday in July, unless some pressing business come up. So if you're looking at your calendars and you want to take a vacation, that might be a nice schedule to the second meeting in July is anticipating being canceled. Also, just to fill you, at the last meeting there was a little bit of discussion referencing signage. Vice Chairman Haddad and I have scheduled a meeting with Corporation Counsel. We will be meeting with them next week to discuss that, and we will keep you updated on what we find out from that. So with that, is there any other business to attend to this evening?
Yes.
Commissioner Haddad.
Mr. Alpern, did we do something on at Marriott at one time on
No, we did.
a liquor?
Yeah, we got a hotel.
We did one on Newtown Road.
We never did liquor here.
Courtyard.
We did the courtyard by Marriott
Right.
on Newtown Road.
This is Residence Inn.
But Seeger Street, we never did. Oh,
This is Residence
I
Inn.
never realized that.
They want to have the
Okay.
same setup as they do.
Same setup.
Chucks, you're cute.
Mr. Alpern?
Yes, I have received some complaints about
the fact that there's no distance requirement between grocery stores that get beer and wine permits, not between the stores or between the stores and liquor stores. Is there any interest here in looking at that and considering a change? For example, package stores have to be 2,000 feet apart. Probably, I'm not in the liquor retail business, but I would suspect that a huge portion of their business is beer and wine, especially beer. And yet, we have little grocery stores all over the place. And I got a call from a guy, for example, whose name I don't recall. Trust me. When you get a certain age, you forget these things quickly. But he runs a liquor store. And we granted a beer and wine permit for a grocery store right across the street. And he was telling me, look, a huge percentage of his business goes to beer. So this is really going to hurt him. And the question is, should we have some kind of distance requirement?
Commissioner Renz?
I had a thought on it. Is there some precedence? I recall prior meetings, people discussing other towns where there actually is some experience with regulating this. Did I hear that all that correctly?
Yes.
I heard something like that.
I don't know if that's true or not. But
I would consider that a restrained trade. Very simple.
Well, yeah, but so is prohibition. Somehow, alcohol has always been treated differently, in that regard. And I'm not at all concerned about the legal issues. I'm not concerned about the legal issues involved, although certainly anything that we would present to you would go through Corporation Counsel. But, for now, for example, we have a distance requirement between package stores, otherwise known as liquor stores.
Mr. Haddad.
Mr. Chairman, we actually that person can submit, could if he wants, submit his own petition. That person who took a telephone call from, a citizen that owns a liquor store.
Petition for what?
Am I correct in saying that person you took a telephone call from couldn't go to your office and make a petition to this commission on some type of new regulation?
Well, it's a citywide issue.
Yeah, but any citizen.
Right now, this is my world right now. I'm on this Main Street Renaissance Task Force, and I've been charged with the responsibility of coming up with a revitalization plan for downtown Danbury. That's where most of my energy is going right now. But you run into some of these issues along the way, and you can't dodge them. One is to make some revisions to those downtown regulations that govern restaurants, and it would be very easy to, at the same time, to amend and add in a distance requirement if you guys are interested.
Mr. Palma?
I think this is something that we should consider because to protect other people's business too. Otherwise, if you see maybe 2-3 years later, we're going to have more package stores or some little retail stores, and they all going to want to have liquor, wine and beer at least. And it should be some kind of regulations, a certain distance between each store.
Yeah, but see, the number of package stores is limited by state law.
Right.
Based on population. But grocery stores are not. So you could have them, any number. Personally, it doesn't bother me. But if we're putting businesses out of business, and that would concern me.
Yes, ma'am.
She actually knows as much as anybody about this.
I also am running into the situation where people are coming in strip centers and they want to sell beer, and they're like 3 stores in a row, and they all want to sell beer. So this is an issue that we should be considering, the grocery beer thing and how it affects other businesses. I think it's something you guys should think about. The one on Triangle Street, there is one grocery beer permit there. Now someone else has taken over the grocery store there, and she wants to come in for a permit. I can't tell her no. She wants to know
By
what...
the train tracks?
Yes, it's Charlotte's property. And there was a deli there that has a
Yeah.
grocery beer permit. They sold that. The new person is going to take over that license. She's already come in. Meanwhile, someone else bought the grocery store that's next door to it, and she wants to come in for a liquor license, and I can't tell her no, but I mean, how can we in good conscience, what are we going to let every store in the strip center have a grocery beer permit? So it's something you guys should think about.
Absolutely. Why not?
It's restraint of trade?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, he's saying absolutely let them.
Let them
He's
lower
saying
their
absolutely
prices.
let them.
Oh,
Feed against each other.
absolutely, yes.
Now, since liquor is regulated differently than beer and milk, than milk and bread, to answer your question, suppose they're all at the lowest legal limit. That solves, I mean, if you're saying lower your prices, so suppose they're at their lowest legal limit, and they still now are going to have 5 in one building.
Well, that's
Well, you still have cleanliness of the store, friendliness of...
I mean, you know, we can't over-regulate just because somebody complains.
Commissioner Jowdy?
Oh, we can't.
Joanne, I have a question for Joanne. How many liquor permits do we have available? Is it like 2 or 3 still?
I think there's one.
Oh, that's available?
I think
Just
there's
one?
right now, because I'm not sure if the last one we approved and paid now, I'm not sure if he's open yet.
That's
But I
right.
get calls every day from people who want to open package stores, and then when they find out about the 2,000-foot distance requirement, they realize they can't meet that. So then I get grocery beer. I can't tell you how many supermarkets I've talked to in the past 2 or 3 weeks about they want grocery beer permits.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, everybody thinks that's the magic panacea to making a profit. They're going to sell beer. You know.
They want to sell it, they succeed or they fail, but let them have that choice.
I have...
That's why I'm asking you.
I'm going to voice in, and I'm just, at this point, I'm not speaking as a chairman, I'm speaking as just me.
As opposed to the other times when you're...
As opposed to when I was reprimanding people, and I may speak as a chair. Meaning I'm not speaking with the gavel representing the commission, I'm speaking as a commissioner.
You're not speaking ex cathedra.
Yeah. And you made me lose my thought. No, but I'm a school teacher, so I get it right back, and I might go off on a tangent now. But I think we do a nice job looking at things case by case, and we do have the opportunity by notice and by mailing out to the neighbors, and I believe we do mail across the street, don't we?
I spoke to the gentleman.
So, yeah, so, you know, so I mean, to recognize that, I have my fear is then we're saying, okay, because there's a 7-Eleven here, you can't open this little grocery store here and sell milk and bread. I know it's not the same.
They can open a grocery store.
No, I know it's not the same, but I'm just thinking in terms of bringing it to the next level and using, well, because they limit this, you can limit that. I am a full opponent, in agreement with the free market system and, all of that and capitalism and letting people compete. And if you're going to open up next to each other. But on the other hand, I can also understand maybe the logistics from the alcohol perspective. So I myself would actually want to ponder this maybe for a little bit and
take your time.
Keep some consideration. I'd like to thank you for bringing it to our attention. But also I don't want to overburden you on something that I may down the line say, you know what, this is a bunch of, we do a good job and we don't need to do it. And now you spent a substantial amount of time in researching, and corporation councils looked at the legalese.
This would be fairly simple, I think. And that's the only reason I bring it up. If this were a whole rewrite of commercial regulations, I wouldn't be here.
In which case, if it's fairly simple too, I'd even be open to looking at it and then giving it a thumbs up, thumbs down in that mechanism.
It'll be a while. I just, because one of the things and it's a minor thing in this plan that I'm working on, deals with the problems on Ives Street. And that brings into play that whole section that we look at for permits, special permits. So while I'm looking at that, if you want to address that issue, I can. That's all I'm saying. I'm not looking for extra work. I'm just saying that I think it's a fairly simple thing. If you guys all think that that's important, if you don't, then fine. Like I said, I'm not looking for extra work.
Mr. Haddad?
I totally agree with the free market concept and with what Mr. Chairman and what Mr. DiCaprio mentioned, but I think the twist here is alcohol. And we can see these grocery beer permits, a dozen times a month. We really don't have. If somebody comes in here and right next in the store right next to it, they come in and they apply. We don't have any teeth to deny.
No, you don't.
We have nothing. We have nothing. We can't say neighborhood. We can't say detrimental to health, safety, welfare. They're going to go, my neighbor has it. So virtually everything that comes in is an automatic yes.
And you can be charged with preferential treatment.
So, because it's an alcohol thing, and if you take a look at the record, I very rarely in the last 5 or 6 years when I just saw too many of these things popping up, I just sit here and vote no when they come across the table. Because the reasons for approval, and because the guy next door has it, or because I need to increase my business, or because of this and because of that, and blah, 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 blah. We can't deny it. We have nothing for ammunition to deny it. Further,
I think you find too that in most cases these are established grocery stores. They're not brand new, and they say, "Well, this is a way of gaining extra revenue."
Mm-hmm. We also have to remember that we don't give them final approval. The state gives them final
Yeah,
approval.
but they won't do it unless we agree.
Yeah, we have to.
So, I mean, as far as them being qualified to sell beer, that's really not our purview. Okay, the state has to do their background check and do whatever they do. I think that we really should stay out as far as that's concerned.
and the final thing I want to say is there any, Joanne, if I can, through the chair, is there, do we have a specific date in the record as to when Dairytown closed?
No, I can find out from the state.
Okay, because that's Danbury's only drive-through beer purchasing, and after 6 months, he's done, right? So I'll be glad to see that go.
If they're in use for 6 months, then you make them come back.
I don't know.
I believe there's a stipulation they can't buy beer and ice in that location.
That had many stipulations.
Yes.
That had many stipulations. He was
Ice is a controlled substance?
No. He was
but-
to sell his beer warm. There was supposed to be a camera to photograph the front and back license plate. There was supposed to be a video camera on the driver's face and driver's license, and nothing was supposed to be refrigerated. Nor was it supposed to be advertised. And many times you would drive by and... No, I mean, I drive by it a couple times a day, but I'm very glad to see that expire.
Who put all those restrictions on? The state?
No,
I
we
think
got
that's commission guys.
challenged on that. I think we denied it, and then they came back in, and there was Neil Marcus with that fellow over there, Kevin Page. And we put a lot of restrictions on, but yeah, that's very interesting. Nothing couldn't be cold, not refrigerated. And the same purchaser cannot buy beer and ice on the same purchase.
So you could cool the beer or something.
I'm sorry, but that's...
You don't recall that?
He wasn't